I recently read an article that said that men and women process information differently. And the one thing that really stood out for me was that women tend to look for creative solutions to problems, whereas men tend to look for efficient solutions to problems. And I thought to myself, why is this? Why do we process information differently? And I came to the conclusion that it's probably because of the way that we've been socialized as men and women. You know, when you look at little boys and you look at what they do, they're very competitive. They're very much into who can build the tallest block tower, or who can score the most goals in soccer, or who can outrun or outjump everybody else. Whereas if you look at little girls, they're much more into nurturing. They want to take care of their dolls. They want to make sure that everybody feels included and everybody's feelings are taken care of. So why is it that as we get older, we seem to forget that way of processing the world? I think it's because we get socialized. We get told that that way of thinking is not a good way to go through life. For boys, they'll say, you can't be nurturing. You can't be caring. You have to be tough. You have to be strong. Go out there and compete with other people. And then for girls, they'll say, you can't be competitive. You can't be a good sport. You have to be nice. You have to make sure that everybody else is happy. The problem with that is that when we get to a place where we have a lot of power, a lot of influence, and unfortunately, we still live in a man's world, so men have most of the power and influence. When you have all of the power and you have this win-lose mentality, the only way that we know how to solve problems is by crushing our competition. And what happens is that everybody starts to lose. Everybody loses when we start to think that the only way we can solve a problem is by somebody else losing. If we had more women in positions of power and influence, and we had women that were not afraid to use their voice, we would start to see some really interesting things happen. Because what women tend to do is when they get together, they tend to collaborate more. They tend to think about how everybody can win. How can we make sure that we're all working together? How can we make sure that everybody has what they need in order to be successful? Now, I'm not saying that men can't do this. Of course they can. There are many men that are great collaborators. But I think that we have to acknowledge that men tend to think more in terms of, how can I win? How can I be number one? How can I beat everybody else? And women tend to think, how can we all win? How can we make sure that everybody has what they need? If we had more women in positions of power and influence, we would start to see less problems being solved in a way that creates more problems down the road. Because what happens when you just focus on solving one problem and you don't think about the ripple effect that it has on other people is you end up creating more problems. So if we had more women in positions of power and influence, I believe that we would start to see more collaboration, more empathy, and less problems being solved in a way that only benefits one person or one group. And that's something that I think we could all benefit from.